When you see something that is not right, not fair, not just, you have to speak up. You have to say something. You have to do something. Representative John Lewis.
Mrs. Gage, my, we have come so far. Mrs. Gage, kindly remind us of how we got here. Yet in our nation's Declaration of Independence, indigenous peoples are referred to as merciless Indian savages, while in the Constitution, Negroes only count as 3/5 of a person. African American, also called colored, black, Negro, or worse. Including me.
Elizabeth?
Please go back to bed.
I can't sleep anyway.
They don't listen.
Let me help.
Not you, the men!
They won't be there until the second day.
They think it's a joke. You remember the anti-slavery convention?
I do.
We went across the ocean to be turned away at the door simply for being women, though we've worked harder than anyone to abolish slavery.
But that was the spark. Elizabeth,
Yes?
you can do this.
It gets all jumbled in my mouth.
Well, read it to me. And stand up.
The history of mankind is a history of repeated injuries and usurpations on the part of man toward woman. Having in direct object the establishment of an absolute tyranny over her. He has never permitted her to exercise her inalienable right to the elective franchise. He has compelled her to submit to laws, in the formation of which she had no voice. He has withheld from her rights, which are given to the most ignorant and degraded men. He has made her, if married, in the eyes of the law, civilly dead. He has taken from her all right and property, even to the wages she earns. In the covenant of marriage, she is compelled to promise obedience to her husband, to all intents and purposes, her master, and the guardianship of her own children she bore from her womb. In entering upon the great work before us, we anticipate no small amount of misconception, misrepresentation, and ridicule, but we shall effect our objective. We shall employ agents, circulate tracts, petition state and national legislatures, and endeavor to enlist the pulpit and press on our behalf. We hope that this convention will be followed by a series of conventions, embracing every part of the country.
That was riveting.
Mrs. Stanton, Mrs. Mott, this is Mr. Frederick Douglass.
Oh yes, you've told us so much about him. Thank you both for attending.
Mr. Douglas, I have read your paper, The North Star, a stellar work, pardon the pun.
As have I. Mr. Douglas, your work towards freeing your people is inspirational.
His dedication is only surpassed by his writing. I wish you'd stayed on at the Liberator.
Mr. Garrison, I admire the Quakers' peaceful approach, and I'm grateful for all that you have done for me, for us. But as I've said, the man who suffers the wrong is the man to demand redress.
I worry your aggressive words will produce deaf ears.
Care to elaborate?
The Declaration. It's a tad unconventional. Don't you agree, Mr. Douglas?
I like unconventional. It was a pleasure meeting the both of you.
Truly, it was ours.
Look at all the signatures.
32 men.
68 women.
That man over there say they women needs to be helped in the carriages, lifted over ditches, and to have the best place everywhere. Nobody ever helps me in the carriages, or over mud puddles, or give me any best place. And ain't I a woman?
I never spoke these words. This is not who I am. I've never spoken like this because my tongue naturally speaks Dutch. The newspapers make me to be your mammy, and if you don't believe me over these newspapers, well, I have the whips on my back to show you how Massa beat me because he couldn't understand my language. When I walk into a room and you shout, "Darky," and other words that do not deserve the honor of my tongue, I am no such things either. Who am I? Oh, so nice of you to ask. Put those newspapers down and come to a reliable source. I am Sojourner Truth. I am a woman of God. I am a mother who loves her kids just like a white woman. I love my kids so much that I fought in court to get them out of slavery and won. I have had to fight. We, Harriet Tubman, Frederick Douglass, and oh so many of us have had to fight to live, fight to eat, fight for the freedoms that were given to you when you were born. But for me, I've had to walk through muddy waters, sunken dirt, bloodhounds sniffing after me, and white men trying to kill me, all while with my baby girl in my arms just to get our freedoms that you were simply born with. Ladies and gentlemen,
We are tired. It's time you hear our real voices and be uncomfortable in our pain. And stop reading what someone else said that isn't true. My last name is Truth, and only I can tell you mine. You're weary, worn out, and tired of being beaten down. But by the grace of God, I'm standing here with power to tell you, after everything I had to walk through to get my freedom, I have earned my right to vote. And if we are not given the right, then just like with our freedom, we will keep walking until we do. Keep walking.
Won't you support women's suffrage?
Mothers of men, women of the land, give your voice, support women's right to vote.
Come along, we'll have none of this foolishness.
Had Adam tenderly reproved his wife and endeavored to lead her to repentance instead of sharing her guilt, I should be much more ready to accord to man the superiority which he claims. They both fell from innocence, but not from equality.
Extra! Read all about it. Fort Sumter falls to the Confederates. The nation is at war.
I'll take one.
The war has now begun in earnest. It is not now a question of slavery or anti-slavery. It is not even a question of union or disunion. The question is simply whether the Northern men will fight.
Our brothers are laying down their lives to hold this country together. Why did the fathers of revolution leave this accursed system of slavery for us to suffer and die under? Why did they not, with a stroke of the pen, determine, when they acquired their own independence, that the principles in the Declaration of Independence should be a shield of protection to every man, whether he be slave or whether he be free?
We must, for a while, put aside our own struggles. We must support the war.
We've come so far. The nation may forget we exist.
I came here with no desire and no intention to speak. But my heart is full. My country is bleeding. My people are perishing around me. I feel, as a South Carolinian, I am bound to tell the North. Go on. Go on. Never falter. Never abandon the principles which you have adopted. Abolitionists never sought place or power. All they asked was freedom. All they wanted was that the white man take his foot off the Negro's neck. The South was determined to resist. What is the trouble between us? Slavery. Slavery is the trouble.
Now, if the abolitionists were the cause of the war, they were the cause of it only because they sought the abolition of slavery. The rebels were fighting for the existence of slavery. They were fighting for the privilege, the horrid privilege of sundering the dearest ties of human nature, of trafficking slaves and the souls of men, for the ghastly privilege of scourging women and selling innocent children.
Over 2,000 dead at the Battle of Bull Run. Major losses on both sides.
Women were essential to the war effort and served when called upon. They took over jobs traditionally held by men. Some disguised themselves and fought as soldiers. Others worked as nurses, tending to the wounds of thousands.
Lincoln enacts the Emancipation Proclamation. All slaves in rebellious states are free.
A black man with the brass letters U.S., an eagle on his button, a musket on his shoulder, the bullets in his pocket. There is no power on earth or under the earth that can deny that he has earned the right to citizenship in the United States. This war, let it be long or let it be short, let it cost much or let it cost little, shall not cease until every freedman in the South has the right to vote. Shoot down the Confederacy and uphold the flag, the American flag.
General Lee surrenders. The Union has won the war.
Good afternoon, Elizabeth.
Is there something you've been meaning to tell me?
I have some business to complete, if you'll excuse me.
What's so important?
I'm finalizing the charter with Mr. Douglas.
Would you look at me?
George Train has offered to fund our paper.
Mr. Train has wealth and influence. I think we should accept.
Have you read his speeches about blacks? He's a charlatan. He said women first and Negro last, and that some men have more brains in their hands than in their heads.
Yes, he said women first. Why are you choosing to focus on the Negro vote when we can get funding for us?
He's against everything we stand for.
But every woman in the nation is waiting.
So are the blacks.
For what? They have their freedom. Now we deserve a victory.
How can you say that?
I'm long past needing your approval.
This is not about you. This is about our future.
Do you even have a plan? More conventions? Obedience? We'll both be long gone before anything happens.
We funded the AERA with Mr. Douglas. I can't, in good conscience, make a deal with the devil accepting money from Mr. Train.
Think of Mr. Train as an investor. He's willing to fund our cause when so few others are. This could change history. I know that this is difficult for you, but it is worth it. Our goal is too important. I am starting the letter.
Good afternoon, Mrs. Stanton, Miss Anthony. How goes the fight?
Wonderfully.
A new amendment was proposed, the 15th. It states the right of citizens in the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged by the United States or by any state on account of race, color, or previous condition of servitude. This was a long step toward a future where a colored man possessed the same rights as his former masters. However, not everyone was satisfied.
We cannot support an amendment that, once again, prioritizes men's rights over women's. The American Equal Rights Association was designed to fight for both women and colored people's rights.
Precisely because we are advocates for universal suffrage for both women and Negroes alike. We must support the amendment. We must be practical. In the eyes of the law, we are still not equal.
Slavery was abolished.
Though we no longer wear shackles around our wrists and ankles, we are not free.
Is it not also urgent for women to obtain the rights your people have already been granted?
One cannot pretend there is the same urgency to give the ballot to women as to Negroes. With us, it is a matter of life and death. I hold that women, as well as men, have the right to vote. But are women hunted down like dogs in the street simply for being women? They are not. When women are dragged from their homes and hung from trees, when their children are torn from their arms and their brains dashed out upon the pavement just because of the color of their skin, then Mrs. Henry Blackwell Stone.
Mr. Douglas,
Ms. Stone and I believe that our organization should not support the 15th Amendment, but rather propose a 16th Amendment where both women and colored men secure the right to vote. We are not opposed to your people attaining franchise, but we are opposed to that right being granted to only one gender.
You already have many amendments in your favor, Mr. Douglas. Negroes have been liberated. Negro men have the right to citizenship. And now they propose that your kind may vote before decent, well-educated women.
I see. My kind has obtained the right to vote before a decent, educated, white woman like you.
And what if I prioritize a white woman's right to vote?
It is a shame. The women with whom I've had the privilege to stand by and work with for all these years cannot even listen to the one person who has been with them from the beginning. I anticipated an argument, but I did not expect such bile. Unfortunately, I believe this is where our road ends.
Are you suggesting we dissolve the association?
A wise but imperfect man once said, "A house divided against itself cannot stand."
Let's take a vote. Who agrees with Mr. Douglas? Who is in favor of the 15th Amendment? There you have it. Those of you who favor the 15th Amendment shall remain with Mr. Douglas. However, if you still believe in our mission to secure women's right to vote, come with us. We shall never put a man's right before our own.
Mrs. Stone, on this we can't agree.
The most miserable thing about a betrayal is that it never comes from your enemies.
Miss Anthony, Mrs. Mott, Mrs. Gage, thank you for coming on such short notice. I hope your trip to New York was comfortable.
Let's skip the pleasantries. Your correspondence implied you had a plan.
With the ratification of the 14th Amendment, all persons born or naturalized in the United States are citizens, regardless of prior servitude. The public has begun taking more interest in our cause. We must harness this interest and convert it into passion. We are, after all, the National Women's Suffrage Association.
Mrs. Stanton, if you want to earn the N in the NWSA, you must unite our nation. You mustn't forget our country is made of more than just whites.
Of course. The people need to know what they are fighting for. Only those that control the laws can change the laws.
We need the radicalization of society and its laws in the name of universal equality.
Yes, and women's suffrage is the first step on that path.
In Boston, they're approaching the goal from the wrong direction. You know them, Lucy Stone and her American Women's Suffrage Association. They believe all that matters is the number of sheep in their flock.
Such an original name. And they let men lead them.
Change is upon us.
I feel it too, my love. Our numbers are growing every day. They come to us because they know our way is the right way.
It's true. We need to take a stand. But there is no need to ruffle so many feathers. We can have equality without moral corruption, and we will do this by getting the people to the polls.
Many so-called suffragists use this movement as an excuse to disrupt civilized culture. Those radicals criticize marriage and religion, the bedrocks of our society, then expect to win the hearts of the American people? You must earn people's trust in your cause before the laws can govern.
Our religion, laws, customs are all founded on the belief that woman was made for man. It is time that women write their own narrative instead of being subject to the one that men have written for them.
There is no place for discrimination against men in our society, for they are the lawmakers and the ones who will implement change. The only way forward is with the help of the South.
We shall take suffrage straight to the nation's capital.
We will go state by state to amend each individual state's constitution.
And we will never support any law that gives any group the right to vote before women are given their own God-given rights.
We will gain the voice of the people. We will lead women and men to support women's suffrage. This is the American Women's Suffrage Association.
We are the National Women's Suffrage Association.
Thank you for sending a driver to pick me up at the train station. I never can get used to the humidity of the Deep South. Gentlemen, we have a common cause. It can be difficult to express these sentiments in polite terms, so I'll cut to the chase. If the Negroes are given the vote, then where shall we stand? You know as well as I, they want our land, our jobs, and our daughters. I have a proposal for the continued supremacy of the white race in your region. If you support the enfranchisement of women, you can assure the status quo. If white women are given the vote, we will maintain the political supremacy of the white race, and the black race will gravitate, by law of nature, toward the tropics. My love, I have good news from the South.
It won't matter. The 15th Amendment was ratified.
Ladies, today we vote. This is but the next step.
Are we sure about this? What if we're jailed?
If my husband hears about this, he'll put me out on the street and keep my children. I'd be penniless and alone.
For too long, we have been expected to be obedient and docile women who live to serve men. I say no longer. We have been kept under men's thumb for far too long, and now we take what is ours. I refuse to be without a vote. This is not my cause, but our cause.
To the polls.
Sir, we have come to vote.
Justice demands the vote! Justice demands the vote! Justice demands the vote!
Justice demands the vote!
We are the citizens of the United States, and we shall no longer be denied the right to vote. The 14th Amendment states, "No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of the citizens of the United States." We are the citizens, are we not? I did vote that day, but I was later arrested and fined $100. I never paid.
Voting day. I've waited long enough. Today, I vote. I'm here to vote.
Are you here to clean the outhouse?
No, sir, I came to vote.
Michigan may have fought Union in the war, but ain't no darky woman voting here.
I'm a citizen, it's my right, same as any other. The 15th Amendment states the right of the citizens of the United States. Truth is powerful, and it prevails.
That as free and independent states, they have full power to levy war, conclude peace, contract alliances, establish commerce, and to do all other acts and things that independent states may of right do. And in support of this declaration, with a firm reliance on the protection of the divine providence, we mutually pledge to each other our lives, our fortunes, and our sacred honor.
Ladies, now is our time.
Thank you so much for joining us to celebrate our beautiful country centennial.
We have reached the end of our program today. Thank you.
This country was founded by and for white men. Sadly, little has changed. You invite us here to watch and listen, yet you deny us the opportunity to present our own declaration, as well as the right to vote. Get her off the stage! We will get the liberty we deserve. Where's the sergeant at arms? And now, at the close of 100 years,
that's enough!
We declare our full equality with man. We demand an amendment to the Constitution. None shall be denied the right to vote on the account of sex.
Three years after the Anthony Amendment was shut down in the Senate, the NWSA, led by Susan B. Anthony and Elizabeth Cady Stanton, and the AWSA, led by Lucy Stone, merged to form the NAWSA, the National American Women's Suffrage Association, with Anthony as its first president. This organization did not fight for African American rights. Black women were unwelcomed. This was an organization created by wealthy white women for wealthy white women.
How are you, Miss Anthony?
Quite all right.
The Woman's Bible. I'm guessing you have business with Mrs. Stanton? She's right over there.
Thank you, Miss Stone. Elizabeth.
Susan, so nice to see you.
What, may I ask, is this? I do not believe that any man ever saw or talked with God. I do not believe that God inspired the Mosaic Code or told historians what they say he did about women. You reject the words of your very creator in the name of liberation. There is no freedom in turning away from the truth. We cannot accept any code or creed that defrauds a woman of all her natural rights. You cannot accept any code or creed that defrauds a woman, yet you have no problem taking money from a man like George Train that seeks to take those very same rights from our black brothers and sisters.
Susan, please, you know as well as I that there are more important things.
What? More important things than God? More important than the dignity he has blessed us all with?
If man can write a Bible, then why can't I? Was Eve not equal to Adam in the Garden of Eden? What's important now is securing the vote for women.
Stanton, you rewrote the Bible, and I'm supposed to go along with this?
Just hear me out.
Your women's Bible jeopardizes everything we've worked for.
Susan!
A mob with the rumors as good as a proof.
Ida, another one?
Yes, another black man lynched of supposed rape of a white woman. What would Mr. Douglas have said about this, God rest his soul? He must be rolling in his grave. Guilty until proven innocent. What white man of the South practice is all right for himself, he assumes to be unthinkable in white women. Men can and do fall in love with the pretty mulatto and quadroon girls, as well as the black ones, but profess an inability to imagine white women doing the same thing with Negro and mulatto men. Whenever they do so and are found out, the cry of rape is raised, and the lowest element of the South is turned loose to wreak its fiendish cruelty on those too weak to help themselves.
Seeing our children touched and seared and wounded by racial prejudice is one of the hardest crosses colored women have to bear.
The Southerner has never gotten over his resentment that the Negro is no longer his plaything, his servant, and his source of income. I thought we might be getting somewhere with the NAWSA working with Stanton and Anthony even after the amendment was denied, but how naive, how stupid was I to think that they would care for a Negro women's vote, and then hundreds of deaths swept aside, so the image of white purity remained unstained with the black mark of justice.
Oh, Ida, sweetheart.
Suppose we have the evidence. Could we get it before a judge, or a grand jury of white men who had permitted it to be? Or force a reporter to tell what he saw and knows about that night? You know very well we are powerless to do any of these things.
They say we are free, yet their clever laws keep us enslaved. We need a larger association, with our own rules, our own conventions.
Isn't that why we're here?
What if we merged the two? National League of Colored Women, the National Federation of Afro-American Women.
We will call it the National Association of Colored Women's Clubs.
Lifting as we climb.
Women demand the vote! 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 Women demand the vote!
Go home!
Women demand the vote! Women demand the vote!
Go to your husband!
Women demand the vote! Women demand the vote! Women demand
That's
the
enough
vote!
out of all of you. All right, ladies, time to go home. You're not getting the vote today.
Women demand the vote! Women demand the vote! Women demand the
Ladies,
vote!
you must
Women
move
demand
on.
the vote!
We have no
Women
intention
demand
of
the
doing
vote!
anything of the
Women
sort.
This is
demand
your
the
last
vote!
chance.
Women demand the vote! Women demand the vote!
Wrong
Women
choice.
demand
Arrest
the
these
vote!
ladies and take them to the
Women demand
station.
the vote! Women demand the
What
vote!
are we being arrested
Women demand the
for?
vote!
Obstructing
Women demand
traffic.
the vote!
Maybe next week you ask the president to change that law too.
You can't arrest us because you don't like what we say. It's our First Amendment right.
Boo! Go back to your kids!
Mr. President, what will you do for women's suffrage?
That's enough hysteria for 1 month. Get them out of my sight.
What is America? After all the losses we've faced, do they expect us to surrender?
Never.
We will fight on, whatever the cost.
What's happening?
All of you are being released. One Miss Mary Ingham posted your bail. $1,025. That's over 50 ounces of gold. Your entire movement will be nothing without a rich woman's money. You owe as much to her husband as she does. Remember that.
Mary, thank you so much for posting bail.
Of course, Eunice. I was so worried about you and the others. I've heard terrible news about Alice Paul. She's been committed to the DC jail psychopathic unit. And she refuses to eat.
Oh my. Mary, sometimes I wonder if this will ever amount to anything. Alice and some of the others started picketing the White House nearly a year ago, and the movement has been going on for decades. Miss Anthony, Mrs. Stanton, Miss Gage, Mr. Douglas, they poured their entire lives into it. But what do we have to show for it?
We have come so far and we still have far to go. But I believe in this movement. I believe in us and those who came before. And I believe in those who will follow. We have to hope. I have to hope. If we lose that, what do we have?
Your dinner, Miss Paul.
I won't.
Do we need to use the feeding tube again?
I will not eat.
This hunger strike of yours, this one-woman crusade? You act as though your death would make a difference. Women have a role, but it doesn't involve voting. Look around. What have your ideals gotten you?
20 million women are denied The right to vote every election. You get.
Yes. Oh. Thank you, young man. God, why does my head hurt so much? That's what you get for drinking with the anti-suffs all night. Hello, good morning. Excuse me? Past 12. When did that happen? 3. Where the hell is my watch? I hope I didn't keep you waiting for too long. What, are you some suffragist spy or something? If you would be so kind. Yes, well, of course. Now, what is this regarding, Miss Dunsley? Yes, at 4 o'clock today. That it would. I'm well aware, Miss Dudley. Miss Dudley, I mean no disrespect when I say this, but I'm fully aware of what is at stake today. Change my vote. And you want me to do it? A vote for the suffragists. Miss Dudley, I'm sorry, but my vote has already been decided. And in any case, the vote may not even occur today. From what I've heard, the other representatives are moving to table it until after the elections. That is what I said, Miss Dudley. Well, yes, I assume that's the whole point. Can't be blamed for how we vote if the vote doesn't happen, right? What I mean to say is, it's always safest to assume a position of neutrality in situations like these. I am an anti-suffragist. Women will get theirs in due course. If women don't get today, it will come. Damn that Dunsley, whatever the hell. Damn this vote. Damn all of them. From my mother?
Why now?
I do hope you are still in the notion of not making the race this fall. I assume you've seen enough politicians to know that it is not one of the greatest things to be one.
I don't have time for this.
Byrne. Harry Byrne, your vote.
Excuse me?
Do we vote on the 19th Amendment or not, Mr. Byrne?
Oh, nay.
Order. There has been a tie. A second vote concerning the tabling will commence shortly.
My God, it's a tie. Harry's got a chance to get it right.
Byrne, your vote, please.
Oh, well, that was quick. Nay. For the love of God, Mr. Byrne.
Mr. Banks Turner, your vote, please.
What happened? That means they'll take the vote!
According to these results and due to the rules of this chamber, the vote to determine the passage of the 19th Amendment will proceed.
Dear son, hooray and vote for suffrage. I have been waiting to see how you stood, but have not seen anything yet. Don't forget to be a good boy and help Mrs. Cat with her rats. Is she the one that put rat in ratification? Ha! No more from Mama this time. With lots of love, Mama.
Harry T. Byrne.
Aye.
The motion passes.
We did it. Here. This one suits you much better.
Thank you.
Mrs. Dudley?
Mrs. Wells Barnett?
While women did get the vote with the 19th Amendment,
it was not all women.
And certainly not all people.
In 1924, all Native Americans were granted the right to vote through the Indian Citizenship Act, despite the fact that not all Native Americans wanted to be citizens of the United States. Members of the Iroquois tribe from Onondaga, New York, believed that this act was treason, as it forced citizenship upon all Native Americans without their consent. President Coolidge signed this act into law.
However, many states continued to bar them from voting until 1948.
African American women,
indeed, many people of color,
especially those living in the South, experienced barriers until the Voting Rights Act
of 1965. In the present day, obstacles to voting continue, including purging voter registration rolls, closing polls early, and eliminating polling stations from minority communities.
Americans with disabilities were not guaranteed access to polling stations until the Americans with Disabilities Act
of 1990. Even through today, citizens living in Puerto Rico, Guam, the Northern Marianas Islands, U.S. Virgin Islands, American Samoa, and even Washington, D.C. are non-voting taxpayers and do not have full representation in Congress. We have come so far, but do not believe for a moment that the fight is over. The way to right wrongs is to turn the light of truth upon them.
To this day, women are not equal to men in the eyes of the law.
The Equal Rights Amendment, first proposed in 1972, would end the legal distinctions between men and women in terms of divorce, property, and employment.
But it has not been ratified.
In the end, your voice is your own, and we urge you to use it. Vote! So many have given their lives so you may.
Vote your heart. Vote your head.
But vote.